Hi my little weavers. In this video I'm going to show you how to do the Egyptian knot. Now before I start and show you, I really want to tell you to not get too much yarn. I'm going to use this blue yarn on another loom that I've created, and it's not very long. I'm only going to have it to about right here, and I'm just going to do a one arm length of yarn. Again, you have been weaving for a little while. The Egyptian knot is nice because there's no pattern. You don't have to worry about a pattern. You just do the same thing on every single warp thread. The downside to the Egyptian knot is that there's more frequency of friction when you're doing the weave with the warp threads. And so what happens is the yarn that, it's hard to see, but the yarn has a spiral to it. And so as you start to weave, the spiral starts to become undone. And you'll notice that. Now, I don't mind starting and stopping. That's, tying the knots on the warp threads has never been a big issue for me. Again, there's no pattern, so you can just keep going and going and doesn't worry. But I wanted to strongly advise you to not get a lot of yarn. It's going to start messing with you and the yarn is going to get weird. Pick your poison. So here's my extra loom. I'm going to show you how to do the Egyptian knot on it. Just like always, we're going to find one end. And as you can see, my yarn is not very long. It's very short. I've done this weave many times, and I know that if I get too much yarn, as much as I want to, it'll start to frustrate me, and I'd much rather start and stop. Like, I don't really mind starting and stopping, than get frustrated with the yarn. Like, I don't, like, once the yarn starts to knot up, game over. Miss Argent Day likes her sanity as much as she has it. So I'm tying my knot on my thread, on my needle. Again, there's other needles that you can use. Typically this one's fine. It's like this corner tends to kill me a little bit when I'm going through the warp threads. So sometimes I cut that off. You guys decide, you'll figure it out. Again, my tail, my other end, I'm gonna knot it on one of these warp threads. And just like before, as long as you're not doing it on the very last ones, any of these in the middle is fine. And what's nice about the Egyptian knot is that there's no pattern. You don't have to worry about where you start and stop. The pattern continues regardless. So just like before, I found a warp thread. And now I'm going to tie my knot onto there. We'll do that one more time. And now I'm ready. So before we begin, I just want to show you what this is supposed to look like, what the knot is supposed to look like. It's not an actual knot. So as you can see in the diagram, in this image, you're pretty much just wrapping the yarn around each warp. It makes it look like a knot, but it's not really a knot. So let's begin. Let's get started. So here's my knot that's on the warp thread, and I'm going to start my first Egyptian knot. So what that means is I go under, okay, so I'm under it, and now I'm just going to go around, and then I'll go under the next one. And then I go around. Now with the Egyptian knot, you want to make sure you're not tugging too hard. Like, you're not actually making a knot. You're just doing this type of weave. It's almost like a little bead. So if I pull it really tight, you know, it's going to kind of mess up the warp. It doesn't need to be tight. So I'll zoom in to show you how this looks a little bit closer. So here's my thread. I'm under that warp, my blue weft. I'm going to go around and then under the next one. Oops. So now I'm going to go around this one and under my next one. So there's no pattern. Like, this is the nice thing about the Egyptian knot. You don't have to worry about, oh, is this opposite? Am I doing it? You're going to have all these little knots just lining up in a row. They almost kind of make a little column. So again, I'm under the warp. I'm going to go around and then under the next one. And then I'm going to go around and under the next one. You're just going to keep repeating this. So I'm going to do a few rows so that you can see what this looks like when it starts to line up on top of each other. Okay. Before I get too much further in creating a few more rows on the Egyptian knot, I just wanted to show you or point out what's starting to happen with my yarn. Now remember, I told you don't get too much, and I really wanted to do a few rows to show you guys, and so I didn't listen to my own advice. And it's not bad right now. My yarn is just starting to spin on itself, but what starts to happen is that the more I'm putting my needle through, the more this will start to kind of like curl up on itself and actually start to fray just a little bit. It's not really happening yet, but you can see that it's already kind of like starting to like fight itself. Like, let me zoom in on this right now really quick. So you see right there how that the threads within the yarn, they're kind of starting to open up a little bit. That will start to happen more as I keep going. Now this isn't bad, nothing is going to happen. It's not going to look any differently from the rest of your Egyptian knots, but just know that you're causing a lot of tension because we're constantly just kind of like spiraling around the warp threads, and they'll kind of just keep doing this little unraveling show. See, like that one right there, you can kind of see my yarn starting to come apart right there. So just be mindful. Also know that you still have to go around. So like here I ended, I'm going to come back around and then get started on my next row. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do a few more so that you can see really how this all, it looks so nicely when it's together, creates these little columns. You just have to kind of start and stop a few times so that way you're not really destroying the yarn. So let me do a few more rows so you can see what it looks like when it has this nice little block of weaving. Now I've started continuing on working on some rows, and I just wanted to show you that I'm now at the end. So I actually need to make a knot because I need to start some more thread. And what's really nice about Egyptian is that there's no pattern. You know, it's doing the same thing on all of the warp threads. So I'm going to stop right here, and I could start, you know, another warp thread away, and you won't even notice the change. So let me stop really quickly. And this is exactly like what we've done for Tabby. So here I am. I'm right by this warp thread. I'm just going to see if I can get this yarn cut a little too small. Put it through the loop. Ah, my nails. Okay, that's one. There's one. Let me do it one more time, because remember, that's not a knot yet. Go behind. I know this is hard to see because my nails are kind of in the way. I'm going to go behind this yarn. That makes the loop. I'm going to put that yarn right through the loop. And then I pull, pull, pull. I'll kind of fix that Egyptian knot I had right there. So now I'm going to get some more yarn. Again, not too much because it starts to unravel. And I'm just going to tie a knot. I'll do it on this one right here, just like we've done in the past. Again, I like to give myself enough of a tail so I'm not struggling to make my knot. There's one, and then I'm going to do it one more time to make the knot. There's two, and now I'm going to get my needle, get my other end, and same thing, tie it on here. I have so many needles that I don't even waste time cutting off the extra thread. I just pick a new needle. Okay, and now I'm going to continue again. I'm going to do a few more rows so you can see, like, and you can already kind of see how nice this is looking. But I'm going to do a few more so you can just really see how cool and textured this knot looks. So I've done another row or two to kind of just give you that, how this would look nice and full. And again, the knot of where you stop really just kind of blends in. The nice part about the Egyptian knot weave. It does tend to frustrate me, I'm not gonna lie. And so another tip is, let's say you wanna do this Egyptian knot because you like how it looks in this one section of your woven bag. You don't have to do both sides of the bag. So for instance, like what I started doing when I was doing this example loom is on the back, I just went back to tabby. You know, I was just going back to tabby, and as I would get over to the next side, then I would start my Egyptian knots again. Really what you want to pay attention to are the sides. With your knots, this is going to be the side of your bag, and so you don't want these too loose either. So you kind of have to just be careful. Try to get these a little tighter so that way they're not so, like mine are a little too loose. They're too flabby. I need to tighten those up a little bit. Also, if you chose to do Egyptian knot on your bag and you wanted like a big giant section, and as you do it, your feelings of how large you want your Egyptian knot area to be grow smaller and smaller, that's okay. You know, you are not wed to that sketch. You know, I had to make modifications on my bag from what I drew, and you can always do just littler versions. So for instance, in this bag where I kind of try to do a little bit of everything, I have my Egyptian knot down here, and I love it. I love that I have this little, like almost like these little bars, these little columns right here, and I do have them on both sides. Don't be afraid to do Egyptian knot on one side and then go to tabby or go to basket, something really simple on the back. You could have a front and back side to your bag. Or let's say you want to have the Egyptian knot just a smaller section, maybe small sections in different parts of your bag. That's fine as well. What I care about is how it looks. You know, be careful. Don't let these get too loose like I accidentally did right here. You want them to be tight, So like if I look at this bag right here, that's the side right there where the Egyptian knots went around the cardboard. You want it to be a little bit snug so you don't have these holes. And I'm looking just to see the overall pattern. You know, once you start packing these little guys in, they look really, really cool. But I also understand that they can get a little frustrating, and sometimes starting and stopping can get a little frustrating as well. But the Egyptian knot is very cool. And this is how you do it, pretty simply.